Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Infosec Edge Webcast on CompTIA's PenTest Plus certification update. My name is Jeff, and I'll be moderating the session today. Now let's go ahead and meet Patrick. If you've been on any of our previous CompTIA webinars, Patrick's, the man to give us all the updates on. He did CASP Plus a couple of weeks ago with us. And just quick background on him, if you're not familiar, he directs the IT workforce skills certifications for CompTIA. And that includes Security Plus, PenTest Plus, CISA Plus, and CASP Plus. He assisted the U.S. National Cybersecurity Alliance to create the Lockdown Your Login campaign to provide multi-factor authentication nationwide. And he's implemented a wide variety of IT projects, including an intranet and help desk for 11,000 end users. He's an Armed Forces Communications and Electronics Association lifetime member, born and raised on U.S. Army bases, and has authored and co-authored multiple books, including Hack-Proofing Linux, A Guide to Open Source Security. Thanks for coming back, Patrick.
It's great to be here, Jeff. Thank you.
So just a quick preview of what to expect today. Patrick's going to talk a little bit about some of just the general industry changes and how they affect, the penetration testing space. Going to give us an overview of the PenTest Plus certification, talk a little bit about the CompTIA career pathway, and then we'll dive into the actual exam changes, what's changed from version 1 to version 2. And then I'll spend just a few minutes talking about those CompTIA training resources. Again, if you have any questions and you want to talk to someone directly, you can go ahead and click on that bot right now and talk to someone. And then we'll have Q&A throughout if you have any relevant questions, but we'll try to save time at the end as well to get through all of those. So before we get started, I just wanted to call out the free resources that everyone can download in the related tab. If you're watching this on demand, there should be a link to the slide deck in the description so that you can easily access all these links here. But we have the CompTIA career pathway, which goes in depth into the cybersecurity side of the career pathway. Patrick's going to show us that shortly, but if you want to download that flyer, you can see what CompTIA has to say about that. We also have the PenTest Plus exam outline, so if you want the full objectives and all the details of exactly what's in there, go ahead and click on that link. And then lastly, we've done webinars with Patrick and Randall from CompTIA on Network Plus, Security Plus, CISA, and CASP. So if you're interested in those other certifications, feel free to click on those and watch those webinars. And last thing before we get started, and then we hand it over to Patrick, it's always good just to get a sense of what everyone on the call is interested in. So if you could just take a moment, go ahead and answer, if you're interested in taking the PenTest Plus exam, if you're just kind of here exploring to learn a little bit more about it. And while we wait for everyone to answer, I guess I'll throw it to you, Patrick, to maybe give us a little bit more background on the PenTest Plus. I know it just came out a couple of years ago, so curious how the first few years of the exam have been going.
Yeah, this is the second version that we're in the plan, that we're talking about today. So as far as the first version goes, it was a brand new certification in pen testing. We hadn't had a certification in this area before that. And so we launched it, and it's done phenomenally well. Especially within the enterprise and defense agencies, and we're finding that more and more people are requiring pen testing skills, but also with a focus on vulnerabilities, and that you're finding the vulnerabilities and what's the plan, because so many vulnerabilities cannot be fixed, and we're stuck with them. And so it's interesting how PenTest Plus really approaches pen testing from a holistic perspective. Not only is the majority of it using technical, techniques, I should say technical techniques, using techniques, for pen testing and, working with those tools hands-on. But it's also, when you find something and you can't fix it, what do you do?
Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and see what everyone answered. Oh, wow. Sounds like a lot of people are actually planning on taking it within the next year, and about a quarter aren't sure yet. So, all right. Well, with that as kind of the frame for the conversation, know that a lot of people are actually planning on taking this exam sometime within the next 12 months. I will hand it over to you to, give us a little bit of background on what's going on in the industry.
Sure. Thanks. As Jeff mentioned earlier, I'm a product manager for these certs. So in that, I manage the product lifecycle for our CompTIA cybersecurity certifications. One thing that involves is that every 3 years we update our certifications, not only to ensure that they meet accreditation standards, but more importantly that they are up to date with the latest cybersecurity techniques and concepts, so that we can secure our networks. So if we look at pen testing, what has impacted this job role over the past 3 years? Well, a lot. Hacking, from bad actors has not slowed down at all. In fact, it's increasing. In fact, over half of the recent data breaches are due to bad actors hacking into systems. And phishing is then the second biggest risk. But the most important thing to understand is 70% of them are financially motivated. And as we all know, you follow the money, and there doesn't appear to be any slowdown in that funding. And so we're probably going to be, we will be battling, bad actors for the foreseeable future. Also, 43% of all the breaches involve exploiting vulnerabilities in web apps. So one of the areas that we really need to focus on as pen testers is web application testing. The tools have gotten a bit better over the last 3 years. Now we seem to be able to find more anomalies that indicate bad behavior, using some of these web app pen testing tools. So that's really, really, really good. And you can find these vulnerabilities a little easier now than in the past. Growth, pen testing, the market is going to double over the next 5 years as far as funds go. Opportunities, cloud pen testing is growing rapidly, as you can imagine. This would make perfect sense because what does a pen tester do? Well, they want to test systems. And if more of those systems are in the cloud than on premises, you need to learn how to do cloud pen testing, because you're going to be pen testing in hybrid environments, which are partially on ground and partially in the cloud. So what kind of challenges does this bring to us? Well, we have to deal with the rising regulation and compliance that mandate pen testing. And so, most pen testers, or most, I should say, regulations, only require a few pen tests per year, maybe 2 for PCI DSS, for example. So, we should probably be doing more pen tests than that annually, and especially more, at least, vulnerability assessments. And so we've got to train more people to do these jobs. And so the biggest challenge ultimately would be a lack of skilled cybersecurity pros to conduct this testing. The solution is through training at a workforce level amongst world economies. And if you look at the top 10 of the skills that we are shorthanded on across the globe, in that top 10 are pen testing red teaming skills. And we've got to focus on communication, because we're finding that if the pen testers are not communicating the vulnerabilities they are finding to an organization, then the organization cannot pivot to possibly need to budget for possibly a new system that might be needed. And so we've got to remember to communicate what we find as pen testers, so that the business side of the company can make plans accordingly, because these vulnerabilities are great, and one vulnerability can take down your entire company. So the communication is more important than ever. And so ensuring that you have integrity, that you have professional skills, and that you can write at least complete a form. We're not saying you're going to have to be a composition writer, but you at least need to be able to fill out an incident form and determine what you have found. And so we're all used to filling out forms, but it's a huge part. Jeff, do you have any questions about this first slide and the state of cybersecurity?
No, I'd just reiterate that we have our CyberWork podcast hosted by Chris Cinco, and one of our our most popular topic is always ethical hacking and pen testing. And just going back to that communication point, I think that's the one thing that all the pen testers that we talk to always point out is, that's really the value that you're going to provide an organization. I mean, all the technical stuff is fun, but if, at the end of the day, like that CISO person holding that report in their hand and like knowing what to do with it is really like where they're going to get all the value out of that pen test, right?
Yeah, and ultimately it's a basic concept. It's just to write and have someone read your report. That's all this is about. It's that simple, but we have to at least do it. So agreed. That's an excellent resource. Let's take a look now at the actual PenTest Plus exam. What is it? It is a certification for cybersecurity professionals tasked with penetration testing and vulnerability management. PenTest Plus is the most comprehensive exam covering all red team activities. What we mean by that is it's a red teamer exam, but we actually test all the different phases of the hacking process. We test each with both performance-based and these multiple choice questions. And so we're the only exam that actually does that for every single phase with hands-on as well as knowledge-based questions. Also, it includes all aspects of vulnerability management because, when we talk to CIOs and CISOs, they really are focused on vulnerability management and trying to control things that may not be secure. And so it includes all aspects of that vulnerability management process, gets pen testers thinking about the big picture. And it's very important to do that because if pen testers can look at why am I doing this and how does that fit in to GRC, how does that fit into regulatory, risk and compliance? And you'll find out that most of the PenTest Plus tasks you do are related to requirements so that your company can comply to some type of regulation. Maybe it's even to help determine how cybersecure you are, to give your company a cybersecurity score. That's another thing you've got to remember. Pen testing is important to help determine a cybersecurity score and determine what you've got to fix and how much work you've got ahead of you. It's very telling. Also, PT 0002, which is the new version, by the way. The old version had the exam code of PT 0001. The new version has PT 0002. And it's the most current pen testing exam. And it covers the latest techniques at the moment against expanded attack surfaces. And this was one big thing that came up, too, with our pen testers. They said that they just have a lot more surfaces. There's more that they need to test than in the past. Because, back in even 2014, we were looking at pen testers, and they were really just pen testing on-premises systems. So with some of those great cybersecurity attacks, the historic cybersecurity breaches of the 2013-2014 period, one of the things we learned is that, we have to look outside of the perimeter. We have to look outside of our on-premises systems, and now we have to begin pen testing everything that's even attached to that system. So that included the cloud, that included embedded IoT systems, and the hybrid systems that compose each of those. So it's a lot of work. PenTest Plus launched the new one in October 28th, so it's just been out for a few months. And hey, Jeff, with PenTest Plus, do you have any comments on, from your InfoSec biz about PenTest Plus?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, like how much version 2 has changed, because when version 1 came out, we obviously, like the CEH was kind of Certified Ethical Hacker was really like kind of the go-to, I think, pen testing certification. And we actually have an ethical hacking bootcamp where we offer like a dual certification, CEH and PenTest Plus, because our instructors found there was, a decent amount of overlap between the two. But now that, the certification has been out for a while, just curious your thoughts. I think anecdotally, PenTest Plus, goes farther than CEH and is more challenging, is what I've heard. But yeah, just wondering if you have any thoughts around like how it sort of fits into the competitive landscape with like CEH or offensive security or those other types of more hacking oriented certifications.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you were to look at that, I'd say that PenTest Plus is more of a big picture certification, um, and it covers both the hands-on as well as the knowledge in just one exam. So CEH is covering the CEH exam, as approved. That when people talk about CEH, they're talking about a multiple choice exam. It's the one that you go out and take. Um, just by default. And so if you want to have hands-on experience, you actually have to register and take a second exam that is hands-on. So the goal of PenTest Plus was to create one exam with both of those elements in it. And so that's one thing that's different. Also, in the past, CEH was ethical hacking, and PenTest Plus was pen testing. And we actually had a lot of feedback from the market with PT001 is saying, hey, can you guys add some more ethical hacking, those concepts of an ethical hacker within PenTest Plus? And so we did. With 002, we now have a section dedicated to ethical hacking. And so now in Domain 1, you're going to learn about that as well. But I think the mere fact of the hands-on as well as the theory, built into one, but also looking at the broader purpose of why you are doing the pen testing. That is in there. And from our research, with the CISOs and CIOs, that appears to be a key element, is so IT workers know why they're doing what they're doing and what the end result is. Because if a pen tester is just going to go in and attack something, blow it up, and walk away, really, what good is that? You could hire a teenager, to do that. You could hire one of those, we used to call them script kiddies to do it. But no, we need to be more professional than that. We need to have a process around it. We need to understand that we're doing this ultimately for the safety of our organization, and ultimately, to reduce the number of vulnerabilities our company has, so we are at a higher, that we can withstand the next attack, so that we have resiliency against the next cyber attack. That's what the ultimate goal is. So it's a real team sport. If we look at the cert, a little more details, the slide you're looking at right now is what's on the actual certification itself. So if you download the exam objectives, this is what will be stated. I kind of pulled it out so it's easier to read, but ultimately the certification exam will verify that successful candidates have the knowledge and skills required to plan and scope a pen testing engagement, understand legal and compliance requirements, perform vulnerability scanning and pen testing, use appropriate tools and techniques, then analyze the results, and produce a written report containing proposed remediation techniques, effectively communicate results to the management team, and provide practical recommendations. I wanted to just read this through to you because it's exactly what's on the exam objectives, and it gives you an exact understanding of where we're going with this. You've got the actual, planning aspects of it, which are very much tied to the legal and compliance requirements, because as you know, you need to have permission to access systems that you aren't the owner of in many cases. And so if you're doing this, you have to make sure you have written permission, or else you could be held responsible for any neglect. And so you've got to make sure that you've got your, make sure that you're prepared. In most cases, if you make a mistake, you will not go to jail. You will not be legally responsible in many cases, but you probably won't get another job. So you have to be very careful about that. Albeit we read stories of people who are, becoming criminally liable for a pen test gone bad. That's very much the exception to the rule. What mostly happens is that, for example, you'll have a pen tester who will accidentally, maybe they're just using Nmap, and they accidentally, list the services running on a system that was not within the scope that they were authorized to pen test. Well, the owner of that system, if they understand that you've just scanned their system and have the services, that could be a confidential system, and you could be, that would be noted, and you may not be asked to come back again. And they could even, if it was in the contract and you did that, and it's a top secret system, in that case, then they may wish to, you'll be questioned absolutely as to why that happened. And if you did it on purpose. So those are the types of things you have to worry about, that scope of the pen test, not get anything outside of it, or you'll just be out of a job. All right, then PenTest Plus candidate profile. The primary job roles of people taking PenTest Plus are penetration tester and security consultant. Security consultant, because that's what happens when you are hired, like you're a work for hire. And it's very common in pen testing. You'll have a lot of mom and pop organizations that will do pen tests for other folks. There's also a lot of managed service providers, MSPs, that provide this service as well. And so it's important to understand that not only are there full-time penetration testers out there, but there's also security consultants. So you'll see the word consultant when we talk about pen testers. Secondary job roles. Now, these are job roles that use the skills in PenTest Plus, and they're using them to attack these newer attack surfaces. So cloud penetration tester, they take PenTest Plus. The cloud security specialists, they also do network and security specialists. Indeed, you want to be able to test your own systems. Web app pen tester. We find web app pen testers are taking PenTest Plus because it teaches them how to analyze, code. Now, for PenTest Plus, you don't have to write code, but you do need to know how to use tools that can find code that has the properties of, having bad behavior. For example, in the past, we had web app pen testing tools that could only find things like cross-site scripting, and that was a problem because that's very limited. Whereas there's all kinds of other, code that could, be a threat. And so what these new tools can do is essentially scan code and find threats better than the old scanning devices. So it's very, very promising, and we hope to see more and more improvement there. Also, information security engineer, and security analysts also use these tasks. It's important to note the recommended experience. A CompTIA just has recommended prerequisites. We do not have required prereqs, and that's because people come into our cybersecurity career pathway at all levels of their career. Recommended experience for this one is 3 to 4 years of hands-on experience performing pen testing, vulnerability assessment, and code analysis. So you might say, I don't have 3 to 4 years of hands-on experience. Well, what you need to know is PenTest Plus, this is listing the skills that are used at the 3 to 4 year level, because PenTest Plus is a snapshot of someone who does this job. The exam objectives are literally a snapshot of the day-to-day activities that a pen tester does. And so, if you want to, gain the knowledge and hands-on, work from someone at 3 to 4 years, that's great. You can come take PenTest Plus, get a head start. But you got to go out there and get the experience. So don't forget that. Also, the recommended experience or recommended prereqs would be Network Plus, Security Plus, or equivalent certs and knowledge. Now, Network Plus, because you will be a great pen tester if you know how the network works that you're pen testing on. It's similar to a auto technician. They can't tune an engine or work with it unless they know how it works. So you got to have Network Plus. You have to understand how the network works. And Security Plus, you need to know that too, because or equivalent knowledge, because it teaches you how to harden systems. When you're pen testing and you have that knowledge of how your victims or your targets are defending themselves, you can then know how to attempt to get around those systems. So it's important to know both sides. You'll be better.
Yeah, we had a question from Tisa. She was essentially asking, is there a certification you recommend obtaining prior? So it sounds like we answered that with the Security Plus. But yeah, maybe we could go a little bit deeper into that. Is there anything, if someone maybe doesn't necessarily have that 3 to 4 years experience and they just got their Network Plus and Security Plus, is there anything else they can do, or any particular areas or things they can do to kind of build their skill set in preparation?
Oh, absolutely. For pen testing especially, we really recommend things like Try Hack Me. We also really recommend those cybersecurity certifications, such as those through. Well, we work directly with the National Cyber League. They have 2 events every year nationally. It's like the Olympics, kind of, for pen testing and security analytics. So, those are really good, because we are talking to employers, and employers will tell us they take into consideration if people have a cyber competition experience. And I've talked to people. I actually do. I review boot camp projects for students in community colleges, and so we learn a lot about. I learn a lot about what they're doing to attempt to gain, the experience so they can get jobs out of college. And they're telling us stories that, yes, it is being considered. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I have a lot of IT pro contacts, and I learn a lot from them too. And they're also explaining similar stories to me. So that's a very effective way of gaining experience, is just by jumping into these competitions. So, and basically just the exercises that lead up to them. And so the more hands-on experience you can get in pen testing to be able to talk to somebody, because you got to consider when you go in for a job interview, they might actually ask you to perform a simple pen test. You've got to be prepared for that.
Yeah, we have another question about relevant experience. Jeff was asking, would you consider automated scanning tools such as Tenable and Qualys relevant experience in this context?
Yes. As a matter of fact, we're going to get to the objectives in a bit, but you'll find in Domain, I believe it's Domain 5, Tools and Code Analysis, we list in categories the various tools used by pen testers. One of those categories is vulnerability assessment tools. And within that, you've got automation as well. In fact, we have a blog that talks about this specifically. Let me put it in the chat. It's called, let's see here, we're talking about automation, right? So penetration testing, automation, an essential skill. And I talk about how we cover that in PenTest Plus. So let me put that here in the group chat. Actually, I'll send it over to you. So Jeff, I'm sending you the link. Can you post that to the group? Oh, perfect.
Yeah, Camille.
Perfect.
Camille's on the back end. She'll handle that for us. Appreciate it.
Okay, okay. It's a blog on penetration testing automation, an essential skill. In it, then I talk about how the GDIT leadership. They said this: the enemy is using automation to attack our systems, so we must use automation in response, or we will lose the battle. Now, this came directly from General Dynamics IT leadership, and it really demonstrates the importance of automation in the world of cybersecurity. So please read that and see where the opportunities are and see how we cover it in PenTest Plus. This in itself could be an entire session that we talk about today.
Yeah, I had one quick question I wanted to throw at you myself. I see you mentioned, cloud penetration tester and web app penetration tester, and then so I'm wondering if you get from those in the field that there's like specializations within pen testing now, or is the vast majority of those roles typically kind of like with doctors, you got your general practitioner and your specialist. Is that what we're seeing here as well?
That's what it seems like. Yes. It's exactly what it appears to be. So that the penetration tester would be this, root level job, and then there's going to be specializations poking off of it. The reason is if you look at the screen, those secondary job roles, those came directly from the last 12 months of Burning Glass job ad data across the USA, including hundreds of thousands of jobs. You find those specialization roles breaking out of pen testing. And I think it makes sense because in the past we were just looking at on-premises systems. But now that we've got, cloud, we've got multi-cloud, the hybrid systems in itself, plus you've got the entire IoT fleets that we've got a pen test plus that we're often managing from the cloud. Could be an embedded device fleet as well, or sensors that we're using out in the real world. And so that could be, that makes sense. So that makes a lot of sense why we're seeing these secondary job roles, is there is specialization occurring. That's a good question. Okay. Are we ready to... Oh, hang on. There's one other blog I wanted to share, and this one is called Penetration Testing and Vulnerability Assessment Working Together. So this blog, we've been talking a lot about vulnerability assessment and management during this session. Well, now what I want to do is, in just a moment, as soon as my browser starts working, we'll move over to that. In the meantime, can you still hear me?
Yeah, yep, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, good. Interesting. Okay, well, it looks like the blog is loading slowly, but when that's done, I will send those over. All right. Let's move on to the next slide if there's no more questions.
Yeah, we have a few questions, but I'll save some for the end.
Okay. Accreditation and approvals. PenTest Plus is approved under DoD Directive 8140-8570. The three roles are Cybersecurity Service Provider, CSSP, Analyst, the CSSP Incident Responder, and the CSSP Auditor. One thing we're hearing from enterprises and the defense industry is when you have auditors who understand, the fact that they're auditing to comply to some kind of security control and thus achieve an accredited status or to pass the compliance process, we're finding that understanding technical skills as an auditor is key. Like, for example, I'm working with a governance agency that is actually looking at CASP Plus, our CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner cert, CASP Plus, as a technical cert for auditing job roles. Because there's this, there's a faction out there, and I think this will grow, that believes auditors, if they have more technical skills, they're just going to be better at their job. So if that's the premise, then we need to understand learning auditing skills would get us all more money and better jobs, possibly. So if you are a pen tester and you like the auditing aspect of it, you really should consider going into that as a profession, because technical auditors, it appears that they are going to do quite well, and they already are doing well. So just keep that in mind. That's just an aside. Okay, PenTest Plus, it also maps to 7 GCWF nice workforce work roles. I guess that's the nice framework work roles at over 70%. So let's take a look at these because they're really good job roles. One is Security Control Assessor, Cyber Defense Analyst, Cyber Defense Infrastructure Support Specialist, Cyber Defense Incident Responder, Vulnerability Assessment Analyst, Forensics Analyst, and Cyber Defense Forensics Analyst. It's important to note that forensics does come up when you look at pen testers, because ultimately a pen tester going into very advanced work would probably need to know forensics in order to essentially take something and re-engineer it. Because you have embedded devices, for example, you may not know what those are. With forensics, you can do reverse engineering and figure out what it is. So that's when we talk forensics, that's advanced level, but PenTest Plus is in the pathway to get you there. And it maps over 70% to these work roles. What does that mean? It is expected that things over 70% would be considered for use as training, and anything below 70% might need some kind of additional material added to it. So being over 70% for NICE is a good thing when you're looking at the Department of Defense anyhow. But I wanted to share these accreditation and approvals with you because they are very important, and they really point out what the industry considers this certification can accomplish.
Yeah, we have a question from Deborah that I think fits in here because you were talking about the CAS Plus certification and clearance levels and things like that. And so she says that she has her CAS Plus cert and as well as some IT background in the past, but she does not have any active experience or clearance level, and she's having trouble getting a job. So I was wondering if you have any maybe just broad advice, either specific for her or just, in general about, how to best present yourself, once you get these certifications in order to, stand out and actually get hired with them.
Sure. Well, let me go to the next slide and show you the CompTIA career pathway so we can take a look at where CASP Plus is located. If you look, CASP Plus is the capstone to the cybersecurity pathway cert. So it's on the far right there at the bottom. So you'll see CSP. When we look at the CompTIA career pathway from left to right, it goes from 0 years of experience to the right all the way, if we go, other way around. 0 years of experience to the left and 10 years of experience to the right with CASP Plus. And so as you travel through the core skills certs and then to either the infrastructure or cybersecurity pathway, when you get these certs, you're basically learning what those job roles do, but you're not getting the experience that you need. And that's why it's very important for people, especially in cybersecurity, to understand that their first cybersecurity career job might not have the word cybersecurity in the title. I explain this to you from a vocational perspective first. This pathway is proven to provide cybersecurity professionals, infrastructure pathway professionals who do a good job. This is verified through our exit surveys, through our IT and HR surveys. They are accomplishing the needs of the industry because the industry is helping us create them. This just mirrors what the industry wants. So if you're going through the pathway or you're getting these certifications and you're not getting experience, it's unlikely you're going to get a job with the word cybersecurity in it until you get that experience. So what works, but it's not the most enjoyable path for some, is making sure you're getting jobs in these core skills areas and getting experience that way. For example, I started out as a junior network administrator, and so for me, Network Plus was my ticket in 1999. So I got Network Plus, and that then proved that I knew the networking skills. However, I need to get experience. So what I did is I volunteered to work at our company's server room that supported all of our student networks. And so because of that, then I was able to get networking experience by running an email server for students. I mean, at the time, this was Internet 1.0. You're running FTP services. You're running a website. Running all these different services that the students were using to learn. And from that, then I got like 2 years of networking experience. Actually, it was more than that. It would have been 3 to 4 years of networking experience. Then I got a job as a manager of IT and LCMS at a Fortune 500 company, and I was really excited about that. But it was only because I had that networking experience from my other job and I had been an instructional designer writing. And so then I volunteered. I worked for 3 years in the running those student servers. And because of that, then I got the job at a huge company that I'd always wanted to work at. So that's how I did it. And if you talk to people, you'll often find they have the same story. So from that, I then became a manager of IT and LCMS, and then I became director of IT trades and LCMS. And so when that happened, I had all the security I needed, because when you are in networking, all you do is learn how to harden systems, and you're constantly battling attacks. Even back then, we were constantly under attack. So from that, I got my experience, and that is what I recommend that you should consider, because it's possible someone's not going to want to hire you with CASP Plus if you don't have 5 to 10 years experience. There's a lot that goes on, especially by the time you're to the 5-year period, because you get the big picture at that point, and that is when they want you, is when they want to see this person understands the big picture of cybersecurity. I'm going to hire them. And they can tell immediately by asking you 3 to 4 questions. So anyway, that's my advice, and I probably went on a bit more there than I could have, but it's an area that I've lived. So Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, that was great. Just wanted to let you know we have about 15 or 20 minutes left, so and we have a few questions for the end. So I'll let you get through these next few slides here.
You got it, because now we're just going to look at the specifics of what changed from the old exam to the new, and this is pretty quick. The new exam, 002, there's same number of exam objectives with similar titles. It also has the same purpose as the old exam and the same audience as the old exam. There's fewer objectives in the new one, 21 versus 24, and that's due to the consolidation of objectives, which we were able to do to improve instructional design and merge similar topics. And that actually occurs as the job role matures. 80% of the topics are similar, but 20% were updated to include a lot of the changes I've talked about. Expanded techniques for pen testing web apps, cloud, and hybrid environments. And don't forget, IoT and embedded devices as well. There's an emphasis on demonstrating an ethical hacking mindset given various scenarios. There's more focus on vulnerability scanning. So this focus on vulnerabilities. For instance, we renamed vulnerability identification to vulnerability scanning to emphasize hands-on scanning skills. In fact, if you look at the new objectives, you're going to notice there's a lot of, given a scenario, do this. It's almost like the new exam is based on the hands-on skills and then provides the explanation around those hands-on skills. It could be said that in the past, the objectives were more based around the knowledge with then the hands-on skills added to them. Now it's the other way around. It's the hands-on skills with the explanations around them. I think this is very important for cybersecurity because we need to consider, the tasks at hand. It's like being in sports. You're not going to become a great left wing in soccer if you're not practicing all the time, and that requires you to physically get out there and run. There's more focus on code analysis. The previous Domain 4 pen testing tools was renamed and reordered to Domain 5 tools and code analysis. And this was to emphasize that growing need to identify and analyze code during a pen test. And also regarding this, code development is not required if you are you're taking PenTest Plus and you're at the beginner intermediate level of pen testing. I have wrote a blog on that as well, and so I'm going to get that up here. So it's what scripting and code analysis skills do pen testers need? So I'm posting that to Jeff and Camille. If they could post that, that would be great.
Yeah, I had a question about that because when we did our Security Plus webinar, I think you said something like 40% of people taking that were kind of in the developer track. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Software developers are taking Security Plus because they want to learn how to harden systems, because then they can develop software to run on those systems securely.
Hmm. Yeah, and it just, now you mentioned that this exam is also shifting towards that code analysis a little bit more than maybe the first version. So obviously you
Yes.
said, you don't need to know how to code, but I guess in my mind, just from these multiple webinars I've done with you, it feels like that's definitely
Hopefully.
a benefit, knowing how to code for sure.
Yeah, and if you want to do something, I suggest Python, going in and learning Python if you want to learn one. I certainly advise if you can take like a Python, basics course, if you can take a Linux basics course, it will only help you with pen testing because most of the pen testing apps, I mean, once you open the app, you're in the world of the app and its commands. But you just have to be able to open the app for this training. So you should definitely make sure you know enough Linux so that you can find your way around in Ubuntu or Mint or whatever version you are using. Okay, a lot of people are using a Security Onion as well as well. I know that we have used a lot in the past Kali Linux. Okay, so anyway, if you look here at the exam domains, they're very similar. The only thing that changed really is 5 and 4 switched to the new version, and we added the code analysis title, and we moved identification to hands-on scanning. One other thing, we have an exam objectives comparison for you. I believe you have that posted in the widget, so if anyone wants to see the exact mapping between the two, you can go to the widget and download that. If it's not there, I'll talk to somebody and we'll get it up there. All right, and next, real quick, let's just go through the planning and scoping. So what this is now, I'm just going to go real quick, show you the objectives from the 5 domains. This is just so you know exactly what we're looking at. We have not included all of the bullet points under each of these. As each of you know, there's a great deal of examples in the exam objectives document under each one of these objective stems. We're just talking about the objective stems so you get a general idea. So first of all, notice we start out with comparing and contrasting governance, risk, and compliance concepts so pen testers know why they're doing this job. Then we talk about explaining the importance of scoping and doing what the customer wants you to do and not veering from that and making sure you have written permission. Also, you're going to be looking at various scenarios and doing hands-on activities where you demonstrate an ethical hacking mindset. And this is by maintaining professionalism and integrity. This is really important because many times as a pen tester, you're the product as well. You're representing a pen testing company or an MSP. You really need to show integrity and you have to be a professional or else clients aren't going to want to hire you back. This is a matter of repeat business and you want to get that repeat business. So you need to stay compliant and professional. If we look at information gathering and vulnerability scanning, it is domain 2. And so in here, you're learning how to perform passive and active reconnaissance. You're learning how to analyze the results of that reconnaissance. And during this entire process, you're performing vulnerability scanning. So you're learning different tools, and they're actually listed in domain 5, which you'll see the various tools, and it has a category for vulnerability scanning and these tools that we're focusing on, and that includes automation techniques as well. Attacks and exploits, once you have found the vulnerabilities, what are you going to attack them with? And so this includes all the different attack surfaces. So you're going to be researching attack vectors and performing network attacks, wireless attacks, application-based attacks, cloud attacks, consequently hybrid attacks, as well as specialized system attacks, which is our IoT and embedded devices. You're also going to be doing social engineering attacks, so you're going to be learning, how the hackers create the emails that we fall victim to, because many of your clients may wish you to launch attacks on their users. I mean, that's very common for have phishing attacks, for example, on an organization, and that's something you might be doing. And then giving us scenario from post-exploitation techniques. And that's essentially once you've exploited it, what is the follow-up going to be? Which takes us to reporting and communication, domain 4. Here we're going to be comparing important components of written reports, how they can be assembled, different kinds of templates you'll probably have to work on. It's just handy to know exactly what you're up against. Also, we're going to analyze the findings that you got from your tests and recommend the appropriate remediation within this report. So you got to make sure you can write cohesive sentences. You need to explain the importance of communication during the pen testing process, because communication, we're finding, it's everything. It's so simple, but everyone gets busy and sometimes you don't communicate. You have to make sure you've got a process for this so you can get those vulnerabilities identified up at the top, where they're going to need to do some work, maybe budget to replace a system if you can't fix it, because the vulnerability is unfixable. It happens all the time, and we find companies with this whole portfolio of vulnerabilities they're managing because they can't update them. We need to really put more importance on the collective of vulnerabilities out there that can't be fixed and what to do about it. And then explain post-report delivery activities as well, and there's a lot more. And then lastly, tools and code analysis. We need to explain the basic concepts of scripting and software development. You just got that blog. Also given a scenario, analyze a script or code sample for use in a pen test, and explain use cases for the following tools during the phases of a pen test. And 5.3 there, that's when you're going to see the category by tool purpose. And so you're going to see, pen testing tools. You're going to see vulnerability assessment tools with automation tools. And so, take a look at that. And there's also a hardware software list at the end of the objectives. And so, Jeff, that wraps it up for me. I pass it over to you now.
All right, yeah, I'll just take just one moment to talk about how you can train for this, and then we'll pick our Infosec Skills winner. And then if you have any remaining questions that you'd like Patrick to answer, feel free to send them over, and we'll wrap up with those remaining questions. So yeah, I just wanted to shout out our Infosec Skills training platform. Obviously we have our live boot camps that people can take. We've been doing those for 15, 20 years now. Starting with our ethical hacking boot camps, and now training for PenTest Plus since that came out. So that's a great option if you want that live instruction. But we also have our Infosec Skills platform, which is only, I think, like 3 years old now. But we've added a lot of really cool cyber ranges this year, and you can actually try it for free. Patrick was talking about getting that hands-on experience. We do have like a monthly challenge each month where you can go in and try like 3 of these labs. We have like the Sandworm APT, and we have reconnaissance labs, and all sorts of stuff mapped to the MITRE framework. So you can go in and get some of that hands-on experience for free. Or if you wanted to, pay for a subscription, you can go ahead and train for all these different CompTIA certifications, all the way from ITF Plus and A Plus, all the way up to CAS Plus and PenTest Plus. So really recommend checking that out, especially if you're unsure and you want to, explore a lot of different areas. We don't just have certification pass in there. We have, stuff like network traffic analysis, and you can open up Wireshark and do scans, and Kali Linux, all that good stuff is in there. So definitely check that out if you're interested. Just click that link there. And then I wanted to go ahead and pick our winner. So this person gets a year subscription to Infosec Skills with all those 1,200 plus courses in there. Let me just grab the winner here. It is, drum roll, it is Ben S. from ASCO. So Camille will be following up with a code that you can use to get access. But we also have a free tier, so anyone can create a free account. We have some free content in there. So you can go ahead and poke around there. Encourage everyone to do that as well. And also if you do have any other questions about the PenTest Plus training, we mentioned there's that bot over there. You can schedule a meeting with someone, talk to them. If that's something you're interested in, go ahead and click on that. But with that, we have about 5 minutes left to answer some questions. I guess one comment that came to mind when you were going through the domains, Keytron Evans, one of our most popular, hacking and penetration testing instructors, he was just talking to me about how a lot of people kind of skip over that domain too, or a lot of students, they want to get to the fun hacking stuff. So they, maybe they rush through the reconnaissance and information gathering phase. So yeah, just a personal recommendation, from our instructors is, hacking is fun, obviously, but yeah, make sure you're focusing on the legwork you got to get there.
That's right, Jeff. And also, I just sent to Camille to post the third blog that we wrote around these new skills, and it is called Penetration Testing and Vulnerability Assessment Working Together. So I wrote a blog specifically on that because this is a specific area that we're all noticing. So that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like we have just 2 questions here. If anyone has any other ones, feel free to throw them in. Talking about application scanning, Zhao asks how PenTest Plus is different from SAST and DAST. I assume he's talking about static application security testing and dynamic application security testing would be my guess. So yeah, it looks like that's just one of the kind of 5 domains, right, of PenTest.
Yeah,
so
I haven't looked specifically into that, but those concepts I believe would be included.
All right, and then the last question we have here, we talked about CEH versus PenTest Plus, and Matthew's asking if PenTest Plus is equivalent to CEH. I think, in my personal opinion, it's a bit more than CEH. I think you would agree with that, but if you wanted to reiterate that.
No, I would agree with that, because if you look at a CEH, it's just all multiple choice Bloom's taxonomy level 1 and 2 questions. So it's only testing knowledge and comprehension. It's not doing any level 3 or level 4, which would require the implementation, hands-on, and analysis. So if you just look at Bloom's taxonomy level, you could then note the difference. I mean, because theirs is Bloom's 1 and 2, just knowledge comprehension. Ours is Bloom's 1 through 4, all the way up through implementation and analysis. So I'll just leave you with that to make your determination.
All right, well, that's it for the questions. I know we've had a pretty busy year here with you all at CompTIA, because we've updated, 3 or 4 different certifications in the past year?
Yeah, this was our busiest year yet, with the most launches ever in the history of the company since 1982. So it's been wild.
Yeah. All right, well, we will go ahead and wrap up. Wanted to thank everyone again for joining us today, and a huge thank you to Patrick for sharing his expertise. Always enjoy having him. As we wrap up, a short survey will appear, and we greatly appreciate your thoughts. The feedback helps, decide what it is that you all want to hear, and so we can hold more webinars on them in the future. Lastly, if you have any questions about PenTest Plus or any other training, reach out to us at Infosec. We'd be happy to answer them or provide additional resources. Thank you all, and have a great day.